called Opus Africanum, or African style. Later, it seems to gathered regularly for worship. This impressive 30-meter-long cathedral was built during the last quarter of the 4th century and was repeatedly transformed over the following centuries. It's pictured here in the 6th century with some of its monumental doorway, which was especially wide. One reached this door through a downward sloping gallery. Notice that the original threshold has been preserved, which is exceptional. Though worn and damaged, it is still recognizable.
So these colours mean something. I think we can yeah.
African style. Huge blocks of stone are laid in horizontal and vertical rows right up to the roof level. In front of the wall are the remains of very old cells, dating, like the cathedral, from the 4th century. They were inhabited by recluses who prayed for the salvation of mankind. The cells would have been quite comfortable, thanks to heating provided by pipes under the floor, some of which can be seen half buried in the ground. Now turn to the model behind you, which shows Geneva 200 years later. For the last 30 years, new archaeological discoveries have forced us to constantly revise our theories. This model, which was made in 1992, is interesting in that it reflects a particular stage in our understanding of urban development. At the time, we believed that the town was located on the top of the hill and that the hillsides were empty. Since then, however, excavations in the lower town have revealed a large concentration of buildings around the port. As a result, the artist's rendition on the wall to the left of the model no longer reflects our current state of knowledge. The cultivated fields around the town were in fact urbanized. This has been confirmed by many excavations over the years, which are detailed on the panel on the north wall in front of us, as well as a dozen more recent excavations. We have now re-entered the North Cathedral. Notice how a layer of dirt was added each time a new floor was laid. A cross-section of the site shows the many different strata that accumulated between the 4th and the 10th century. Behind us, a system for processing wheat left traces of burning on the floor of a room that was used to heat air, which was then circulated through pipes or ducts in order to dry the grain and remove any humidity remaining after harvest. Several stages of development are shown here. Each consecutive extension is shown in yellow, red, and green. At each stage, the apse was completely rebuilt, and the eastern end of the choir was pushed back to provide more room for the clergy. Now, walk back to the entrance and up the stairs. You will then have crossed the monumental 11th century doorway and returned to the cathedral, opened onto the nave. The view from this spot, looking towards the choir, must have been quite impressive. A broad flight of stairs led up to 2 levels. The second and highest, where the high altar stood, was built over the Romanesque crypt and towered 4.5 meters above the level of the nave. The roof structure above the nave was made of wood, while the choir area was vaulted stone. This magnificent site would have certainly made a deep impression on visitors. Walking straight ahead, we come across the remains of a series of baptistries built on the same spot. They contained a large basin in which neophytes kneeled to be baptized in water flowing from a spout. Several basins were found under the floor of the 11th century cathedral, the first and second basin having been destroyed during construction of a later baptistry. Over time, baptism by immersion was replaced by baptism by sprinkling, as still practiced today. As a result, the basins fell out of use, and the size of the baptistry was reduced. The baptistry was abandoned during the 8th century. The font you see here dates from the 6th century. The East Cathedral differed significantly from the other buildings in the complex due to its almost square floor plan. Built in the 7th century or possibly the early 8th century, it incorporated parts of a 4th century church. It seems to have served a funerary function in connection with the cult of relics. The focal point of the cathedral was a monumental tomb in the center of its main axis. This suggests that the cathedral was closely associated with the remains of several famous people who were worshipped by the congregation. This cathedral later became the Episcopal group's main place of worship and its only cathedral. As such, it was continuously maintained and extended until the present.
Therefore, if an excavation was badly managed, no one would ever be able to know what the document could have revealed. You can claim that the excavation was badly managed, but you can never have another trial.
On a, dès l'origine du projet,
From the beginning of the project, we thought about transposing ourselves into the future in order to demonstrate the interest of the site for posterity.
et après, il y a encore une part énorme.
Nevertheless, an enormous part of the undertaking still remains to be done once our results are published, using other methods of work and other ways of thinking.
La chance que nous avons,
We are very fortunate to have such an archaeological site where anybody will be able to come and challenge our ideas. As we offer new working hypotheses, we will be in a position to advance and progress.
thèse de travail.
This proto-historic tomb, dating from around 100 BC, played a fundamental role in determining the structure of the city of Geneva. The tomb and the surrounding houses formed the first kernel of a town, hence its significance. 80 years later, around 20 BC, a mausoleum with a wooden structure was erected over the tomb on the highly compacted earthen floor you see before you. An oval hole was dug in an attempt to exhume the skull of the important man buried in the tomb, probably an Allobrogian chieftain. Later, a second floor was laid over the first. Tiles may have been used as a base for an altar or statue. Sometime afterwards, a terrace was built on the same spot. Bonfires were lit on it, perhaps in memory of the extraordinary personage or hero buried at the heart of the young city. In time, a small memorial church was built to mark the spot. At a later stage, this church was replaced with a series of large cathedrals and, ultimately, by the Saint Pierre Cathedral. It is strange to think that the skeleton of an Allobrogian chieftain still lies precisely under the antechoir of the existing cathedral. And are now standing in the Romanesque crypt beneath the main choir of the 11th century cathedral. Notice the characteristic circular floor plan with a double ambulatory. At the time, the first thing one would have seen when entering the crypt was a forest of columns. There were two side entrances which can still be seen to the left and right, slightly above the level where we are standing. This crypt is significant in that it represents the continuation of a funerary cult, as well as a connection with the cult of Christ and the Virgin Mary.
Maybe this will take us out of that.
An aqueduct brought water to the city from a spring at the foot of the Voiron mountain to the north. The port extended to where we are standing now. A large dwelling was erected here during the second half of the 1st century, probably over the remains of several smaller buildings which also belonged to a Roman official of the town. This house was demolished in order to build Geneva's first cathedral. The wall in front of us is extremely interesting, as it includes sections from all the phases of construction skillfully built on top of it. Later building techniques were less accomplished. Walls from the late 3rd century and the 4th century appear to have been built far more rapidly and with less skill.
Crypt.
Not sure.
The crypt of Saint-Gervais is one of the oldest known in the north of Europe. We now date it to the 5th century, and you can get into it by a door set into the main acts of the church. It must have contained the remains or the tomb of one or more saints and was decorated with paintings and with imitation marble. Its construction was extraordinary because we find many blocks of stone that must have been used in the mausoleum that existed on this site before the building of the church. Later, in the 15th century, it was rebuilt and it has remained in this state ever since.